Near the line of scrimmage, third down, Browning to the air, Higgins bumps, doesn't matter, touchdown Bengals.
Just didn't make enough plays at the end. They call a pass interference on fourth down. Like to see them maybe go earn it, but it is what it is.
Well, we won the game on Sunday, so I shouldn't feel depressed. But we got the news on Monday that our QB's toe is messed. 3 months or a little longer, I am angry, I am sad. So I'll focus on the Jags to feel less bad. Sir, I don't mean to insult you, Mr. Golden Hair QB, but you beg us with that hairdo, even worse than a goatee. Football men should be more burly, maybe have a scar or two. Flowing locks are more for romance books, it's true. Did you lose to Jacob Browning? Did you foul on 4th and 5? Did you blow a 2-0 start on a goal line QB dive? And your coach was yelling and probably smelling like desperation. Welcome to the number one Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Dadio McDuke, and I am joined by my very good friend and the most insightful, authentic, and entertaining man when it comes to Cincinnati Bengals. I'm talking about Zim, 2-0, Who Dey. Mr. Zim, how are you doing today?
I like the way you say 2-0. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling 2-0.
Yeah, and it's funny because all these years since we got Joe Burrow, we're like, just if we can start early so we don't have to be every season, the end of the season, we're trying to sneak into the playoffs. Just once, if we could start hot, and we did, and it's not the way we wanted it to happen. It's almost like a little kid keeps begging his parents to take him to Disneyland, and then he gets lost for like 5 hours, and it's the scariest experience of his life.
That's an interesting analogy.
Yeah. I mean, how are you feeling? Because you always, you kind of go against the grain. You have very, first of all, you have a lot of connections to the Bengals players. You know them personally, but also you understand football and the history of football, and you're not just like wrapped up in whatever trends are going on. What is your take on the Bengals situation this year?
As far as them being 2-0,
yeah, like
my dog just knocked that off.
No, it's like their prospects right now with the current situation.
I mean, the situation is, the situation is what it's going to be. The way I move in life is very much a parallel to how I look at, Bengals football. People that do not adapt, that do not want to move when someone steals their cheese, so to speak, they act different than the way that I approach life. If my cheese gets taken, if my cheese is missing, I adapt and I go find new cheese.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, that is why you're such a successful person. But let me counterpoint. What happens? Do you move when someone cuts the cheese? Because this running game, I'm just saying, I'm just saying it's so bad that something has to change. You got to try something new.
Absolutely. I think in the all season or going into the all season, I think people forget I was big on, I've seen enough of Zach Taylor being hidden behind or people tell, like this, the wildest thing I thought on the internet when Joe Mixon was here I'm gonna bring up Joe Mixon. I know
Yeah.
that's super taboo for a lot of people. Everybody would say Zach Taylor is a bad play caller. Zach Taylor is not good. And then when the Mixon conversation would come up, they would say, well, he doesn't fit the scheme.
Right.
So I would be like, so which one is it? Like, are you a fan of the scheme or are you not? Because my argument would be that he gets hit behind the line of scrimmage.
Right.
And now now, and then as soon as Joe Mixon went to the Texans, he didn't get hit behind the line of scrimmage.
Exactly.
And he ran for 100 yards every week. And then somebody gave him a hip drop tackle and he looked different, right?
Right.
And then go look at Nick Chubb right now. Like, he got hit behind the line of scrimmage a bunch of times, like last night, and he doesn't look like Nick Chubb what he was on the Browns. The counter argument would be, well, Nick Chubb's had all these arguments. The point of the matter is, to me, is like, people choose a narrative that they run with, and they die on that hill of that narrative.
Well,
the difference with me is this: they can hate my guts. You can hate what I say. You could maybe not agree with what I say. All those things above. But at no point do I give a shit about if I'm right or wrong. That's the difference, is that I don't mind being wrong.
No.
They do.
They do.
I'll come on here and I'll tell you, I wanted Michael Mayer. I wanted John Ross. I wanted all these people. I was wrong. So what? Who gives a fuck? Well, I want to win, right? So I want to win. So and that's what happens. Is that's why I move the way I move, and they're so caught up in how they want to win the way they want to win. And the only thing that I want to do is win.
I have nothing but respect for you. You stand behind your opinions. My only thing is, I also have a lot of respect for money and monetization. And so if you can emphasize your points without the algorithm demonetizing this show, it would be great. Just saying, Mr. Zim. But look, you mentioned Joe Mixon. The list goes on and on. You remember Jonah Williams? Do you remember Fred Johnson? Do you remember all these guys? Everybody who leaves this running scheme, this blocking scheme, everybody who leaves seems to look pretty good, right? I mean, or better than, they did here. There's something wrong with the play calling. A lot of people have been blaming Joe Burrow. A lot of people have been saying, look, Joe Burrow doesn't want to do play action. Joe Burrow doesn't want to be under center. Joe Burrow. Here's my thing. It doesn't get any bigger than Tom Brady. And Bill Belichick is not a brilliant offensive mind. And yet, Bill Belichick ran that team. Right? So why is it that Joe Burrow is so powerful and so intimidating that Zach Taylor can't run his offense if his offense is actually good?
I feel like it's a two-part thing. One key word that you said in there that I don't subscribe to, I guess, is blame. So the difference is I don't really have blame, right? So things that happen are all a part of like multiple things in the universe that is making things happen, like just like Joe Burrow being hurt, right? It's not that the offensive line to blame, Zach Taylor's to blame, Joe Burrow's to blame. None of that matters. Like at the end of the day, he's playing football. People can get hurt, all these different things. All these different things are accumulation of or cumulative effort of all these things combined. And then what happens is then he could possibly get hurt or anything like that. But the main thing is like it's hard for me to kind of articulate it, but it just is what it is. If you one trainer of mine, and I was the leader of this. See how honest I am? Like they're not accountable like this. They'll get online and tell you about all the graphics that they were correct on them, but they never tell you about the ones that were wrong. But the difference is I was the main one that said, let Joe Burrow cook. So part of letting Joe Burrow cook is putting the ball in his hands. Part of letting Joe Burrow cook is putting the ball in Joe Burrow's hands in the way that he feels as though will work best for him. If someone is in a business, an entity, or organization, and they're not maximizing someone's strengths, then they're doing a disservice to that person. His job as a coach is to maximize what Joe Burrow does best. So the scheme, if it doesn't fit what Joe Burrow does best, then that doesn't work in Joe Burrow's favor. But the other opposite end of that, or the gray area, is you also have to protect Joe Burrow from the reality of football, and dropping back 40 plus times that I've been screaming since 2020 is also a reality in itself too. That's why there's no reason to blame. But our fan base and the people and the powers that combine in the use of social media, everybody is trained to blame. I don't blame. I don't mind.
No blame. But basically, how do we assess the offense? Where does the offense improve? And I just want to share something that I saw. This was the basically explosive pass and run plays, and the Bengals and the Tennessee Titans, coached by Brian Callahan, are way down there with the worst combination of both explosive run and explosive pass. Now their whole thing is that they are great offensive minds. That's why they were hired. So I mean, I guess, Zim, what I'm asking here is, what is going on? Is there something? Let's say Joe Burrow's injuries, all the hits he's taking, because that's been a lot of conversation, right? I mean, you've seen the graphics. You've seen the Andrew Luck, right? It says QB contact. I don't know if that's hits and sacks, everything combined. But he was hit a little bit more, but the contact percent was about the same. Joe Burrow was sacked more, and we know his injuries have come on sacks. They haven't come from him keeping the ball and running. They've come on sacks. Pressure percent is about the same. And Andrew Luck is like the example of, hey, you're going to ruin a QB from not building a good offensive line. So, but then, right, when you get to basically Joe Burrow and, Browning, you see that, Browning is not getting hit the same amounts. Browning, when he's in the game, for some reason, the run blocking is better. And so
pass blocking too.
The pass blocking. That's mostly the pass blocking. You're right.
Yeah. Both of them.
So it's it's not about fault. It's not about fault. It's about fit.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't want you to take this as like I'm being an a-hole, but where was that graphic at 2 weeks ago when we signed Risner, Fant, and the roster was super loaded? Like, where was you don't think that's kind of, I just find it wild that stuff starts to then pop up. I guess naturally the counter argument would be, well, I mean, he got hurt, but nobody was thinking that when the Bengals did everything that they were supposed to do.
Did they though? I mean, because my thing is this, right?
Fairchild, left tackle, right?
Okay.
You have a Super Bowl champion left tackle. You've gone through 24 offensive alignments in the Joe Burrow era, so they haven't set up. There are teams that have done way less. But no one ever highlights those teams.
Well,
we only hyper focus on the Bengals and what the Bengals didn't do right, but we never spent any time talking about what the Bengals did right. The Bengals did draft Amarius Mims in the first round, correct?
Yeah.
They did go get an insurance policy in Dalton Risner, correct?
Yes, but here's
they did re-sign Depth and Cody Ford. You see what I'm saying? Like it's not like they did not do anything.
Hold on,
they just didn't do what you probably wanted them to do.
Insurance policy for who? For Lucas Patrick, who is a borderline starter in the league, and we're trying to fix the offensive line. Look, we didn't go out and get
what's
Trey
the
Smith.
Standard? Show me a team that you like all 5 of their offensive line.
No, I'm just saying this team had.
I'm just asking.
This team had money. They had this problem. Joe Burrow's getting hit. We know the interior of the offensive line is more important to protect Joe Burrow than the outside of the offensive line because of the way he plays and because of the way he moves out of the pocket. So we didn't go out and get a Trey Smith or a Cam Jurgens or whoever. We got, Bengals fans. Yes, now everybody says, hey, you were begging for Dalton Risner. Everybody's begging for him. Well, yeah. It's like a kid, to go back to the analogy of the kid who got lost in Disneyland. A little later, he's begging his parents for a bike. And they say, no, it's too expensive. So he sees a rusty old bike at the charity shop. And he's like, well, can I get this bike? Please, I need this bike. And then they get him the bike. The expensive bike was at Walmart. It was $98. But
who was the expensive bike is the question.
Well, I'm saying it could be Cam Jurgens. It could be any of these guys. You can outbid them if you really try to. But what I'm saying is then you get that cheap bike. And it falls apart, and the kid falls and hurts himself. And they're like, well, didn't you want the bike? He's like, yeah, because that's all I thought you, my cheap father, would buy me. So I'm begging for what I think you can do, not what I actually think is the real answer.
I will also go to show you a team like the Colts who have had their quarterback hit more, went and got the expensive bike, and the bike caught a couple flat tires and Will Freeze and all these other guys. And the guys that you could, in hindsight, then say, yeah, I wish we would have did that. The Bengals did a lot of the right things this all season. I think that they had one of the best all seasons in football. It's not about the personnel. You could go put some of the best guys out there and it probably still wouldn't work out. The Bengals, in I think that you're highlighting things that they could have did in hindsight, but they did draft Fairchild, right? Who's been the best guard in football as far as a rookie goes so far. But the tendency as Bengals fans is that we have to highlight what didn't go right. And you didn't use the word blame this time, but it then goes back to a blame thing and it goes back to the front office thing. And we're hyper focused on the Bengals, but we don't look at the other teams that did get the players that we want. There's nobody coming on the internet and saying, like, Johnny Newton probably isn't cooking like I thought he would. There's nobody on the internet saying like those things. You only hyper focus on what the Bengals don't do. And instead of it, the reason why people don't like what I'm saying is because I'm focusing on also, in addition to the bad run game, which I'll definitely point out before anybody, is that they did do a lot of different things. And anytime that I bring up those things, notice how the argument is now moved back over to what they didn't do. You don't even want to focus on Fairchild because now Joe Burrow's now hurt, and now it gives everybody a moment to be like, haha, you didn't do what I told you he was going to do. But Fairchild has played really well. Ted Karras is coming off the best season of his career, and he was re-signed. Cody Ford as a depth piece was signed this all season. Yeah. As I said, the Bengals did go get a Lyle Collins. They did go get a Trent Brown. They did go get players that people did want at the time, and it didn't pan out the way that they wanted it to. And so now in hindsight, it's very easy to say what they could have, should have, did, or would have, did, or did. The Bengals had the best weapons in football. The Bengals had the players that the people wanted this all season from all of these opposing teams. All of these teams would trade for the opportunity to have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase run out there, and then they would get to a conversation about scheme, play calling, and all these different things, which was your original point about Callahan and Zach Taylor and all these different things. I lean more on football is a gladiator sport. You drop back 40 plus times and you're extending plays, you're going to get cooked. Tom Brady would, in a football game, probably throw the ball away probably 6 to 8 times a game. Joe Burrow probably throws the ball away 1 time a game, and it's part of his superpower, and it's part of what makes him special is his ability to extend plays. I was the only one in the preseason game when everybody was pointing about, look at Patrick, he's got his hands up, he looks stupid. I was asking, why is Joe Burrow not throwing the ball away in a preseason game? Can you answer that question for me? Why didn't Joe Burrow throw the ball away in that play and then it's loop around? People will then take that comment, and now, because of social media, they will then say, are you blaming Joe Burrow? No. I'm asking a question. Why, Daddy-O, why did Joe Burrow scramble in the preseason game and extended 10 seconds when he should have thrown the ball away in a useless game? Why are we not focusing on that, and why didn't he throw the ball away?
Well, I think the way he's built, he's a competitor. He can't not be a competitor, whether it's practice. And there's certain players that have always been like this. I mean, your Kobe Bryants. I mean, and Kobe had a lot of small injuries, right? They just go all out all the time. So I think that's a big problem. I think it is the coach's job to protect him and coach him and kind of convince him. I think the way Joe plays, I agree. It's kind of high risk, high reward sometimes. I agree. But again, at the same time, I think if he had an offensive coordinator or head coach who he trusted more than himself, he would listen to him and buy into the system. I think he buys into his system because he thinks he knows better. And he trusts, again, going back to Kobe Bryant, it's like Kobe Bryant, the way he played, he wouldn't play within the system, or he would kind of try to do everything himself sometimes because he didn't trust his teammates. And it's on the coach. I agree. And it's on the coach and the personnel to give you that confidence where you don't have to do it all.
I agree with that. But let me ask you this. Daddy-O or Haji somewhere right now. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. If I said, I need you all, I'm going to train you guys on not how to talk with the puppet for your next show, I think that I can get you in a spot where more eyes, more interactions, and more views will be on your message and what you want to speak. But I'm not going to allow you to do what you do best as a puppet this upcoming show. Would you agree to that?
But first of all, we are not a mouthpiece for any organization, Cincinnati Bengals or otherwise. We are nobody's puppets. I just want to clarify that. But yes, point taken. Point taken.
I'm asking
Yeah,
a real
you can't.
question.
You're saying you can't change who somebody is. You can't ask them
No.
to be somebody else.
No, I'm saying that life in any form of business or
Yeah.
any organization is about maximizing what that person does best.
What they do best. Yeah.
People that work for me or things that I do in life, I don't go and do paperwork stuff because I'm bad at keeping track of paperwork.
Yeah.
You could try to show me how to keep track of paperwork and organizing and stuff. I'm not messy. I just don't like paperwork.
Right.
And so I pay people to push paperwork because I'm not going to do it. I talk better and I deliver messages better. So I don't like paperwork. I imagine that Joe Burrow's probably like, this is what I think is probably happening, just merely speculating. Joe Burrow saying, yeah, I like some of that play action stuff, Zach. I think it's cool. But that split second that I have my back turned to the defense, I don't enjoy that. I think that I come from a system, and I think that what makes me really good is processing what I see 3 wide and just getting the ball to my receivers. Zach probably has counter arguments for all of those things, but Joe Burrow probably says, hey, this is what I do to maximize what I do best. I interviewed Orlando Brown 4 weeks ago now. I said, don't you think it would help you guys out, including you, Orlando, if you had a better run game? Orlando Brown said, I don't know. I like the system I'm in. I said, bro, you're dropping back 40 times. If anybody thinks that I'm joking, go watch. Here's a plug, Cincinnati Pod. I said, you're dropping back 40 plus times. He said, yeah, I like that system. I think it works better for what I want to do. And I know that it probably gets the people more shots at the quarterback, but I think that works better for me. And I said, okay. And so what more can you really do when someone is telling you that this is what they feel more comfortable doing and this is what makes me better? But so much you could really do, especially if it's let Joe cook.
I mean, look, Joe Burrow, I know that he does not like his ligaments being torn one after another. He doesn't enjoy that. I know that he likes winning. And I know that he does not mind handing the ball to a running back that's going to get 4 or 5 yards per carry. He doesn't mind any of these things. I think it's not a preference thing. I think he truly believes that he needs to win the game for them. I think he believes that. And that is a problem on his end, but it's also a problem on the system he's in. It's a bad reflection, I think. But listen, Mr. Zim, we could talk about this. I know you have to go soon. So you want to talk about the running game, or should we move on to the Vikings game?
I think the run game is awful. I will say, I've been pushing for the Bengals to run for years. They don't. The one thing I can say is one of my favorite games, if anybody wants to go look this up, it's one of my, if you could say, I don't believe in Zach Taylor in the system. I get it. I understand. 2 of my favorite Zach Taylor games of all time. One game, Joe Mixon was concussed. It was and he didn't play. It was the December Kansas City game, 2022. Bengals dominated that game. It's a balanced attack. P. Ryan runs 4 yards a carry. Joe Burrow has a 92% adjusted completion rate when you account for drops like Tyler Boyd. I thought that they were the better team in that game, and I thought that that's what the offense should look like. The second game that is my favorite, most people don't remember, it's a Jake Browning game. Jake Browning was not sacked in that game. In that same game, the ball went to the running backs a lot. And when I say went to them, both running backs accounted for over 100 all-purpose yards. This is the Bengals versus Colts game in 2023. Joe Burrow's hurt, whatever. Bengals dominated that game. There's a run in there with Jake Browning once the playbook gets switched over where it works in his favor. But in that game, screen game, all these different things when you're just getting into your weapons. Moving forward to 2025, I think the Bengals have more weapons. I expect to see a lot more of what I saw that day. Running backs with over 100 all-purpose yards. You're going to see targets for Jamar Chase, and I thought that you saw that a lot in the game. And it's funny that we're talking about quarterbacks and we're talking about what didn't go right and we're figuring all these different things. The one thing that nobody's talking about is the defense. The defense in the AFC North is currently averaging less points per game on them in the whole entire AFC North. You could say, oh, well, Zim, that was just 2 games. I get it, but I was told before the season that the Bengals will have the worst defense in the NFL. The Bengals are allowing less yards than the Steelers and the Ravens. They're allowing the lowest yards per game. You could say, oh, well, they played the Browns. Yeah, the Steelers played the Jets, and the Jets look like complete dog trash in the second week of NFL football. So there's always going to be an argument against ourselves over and over again. I get it. And I guess I'm the voice of reason or the voice on the optimistic side. You can classify me as a homer, but I would be an a-hole to not point out these things that exist. I know that everybody wants to talk about what has gone wrong with Joe Burrow. I know you hate me, people that are listening out there in the world, for pointing out factual information. Not even my opinion, just factual information that when I go on a show and the opposition is going to ask me about stuff, they're going to say, what about Burrow hurt? Burrow hurt, Burrow hurt. You know what they're not going to ask me about? The Bengals being 2-0 and the Bengals having a better defense than all the teams that told me that they were going to have a better defense than us. Jordan Battle now having 2 interceptions. Geno Stone having a 0 completion rate going up against them. See how I have all these things and this information stored up?
Yeah.
Because I assess all of the information that is given to me on the positive and the negative side. People think that realism is being pessimistic. Realistic is looking at both ends of the spectrum. That is complete realism in realistic aspects of life. If you're not looking at both ends of the spectrum, then you're not being realistic. You're being pessimistic.
I agree. Everything you said was beautiful and perfect. And look, the Bengals, the run game is a mess. And I just wanted to show. So this is just showing everybody's excited. Everybody was excited about Chase Brown this year. And look, I mean, basically bottom of the league in terms of, runs above expected yards, and also the team's run block rate. I mean, it's terrible. It's really bad. But the good news is
it is really bad
that Jake Browning is a little firecracker. This guy's nuts. This guy will throw the ball. You remember in Madden when you have a good receiver and you just see him streaking and you throw it without even looking at the defensive coverage? That's Jake Browning. He's like, oh, that's a guy I want to catch the ball. Let's see what happens. He has
If you pay a wide receiver $40 million, you should.
I mean, but I've never seen something like, it's like almost like a, like a Steph Curry, shooting and then turning his back to, he has no idea what's going to happen downfield. He's just like, let's see what happens.
I promise you, if me and you get a football and we have a chance to throw it for the Cincinnati Bengals, I'm throwing it to a guy that just got paid $30 million and a guy that got paid $40 million any one-on-one opportunity I see. He did throw some.
They're like in triple coverage.
I don't think you're giving him credit for that. Those pocket shots that he threw in between a couple of defenders. He had another one in between that Jamar Chase was like a foot away from. Remember, he targeted Jamar Chase 16 times. He only really had one real incompletion in my mind. That's kind of crazy.
Joe Burrow targeted Jamar like 10 times. There was 7 or 10 times, I think, before he went out. It was about half of them.
And week 1, he targeted him 4 times, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So $40 million, I'm targeting him 100 times.
I agree. But
100 times.
Like Goodberry pointed out, I mean, great offense, great receivers, and he kind of stepped in 2023, had a nice run. But his numbers, if we just look at them objectively, he's about above average, for a league quarterback. Like, there's not really a concern for the passing game, I think, Zim, other than him throwing a very untimely interception. I think he can move the ball. I mean, he has proven he can move the ball. It's just, sometimes he moves the ball a little too fast and a little too wild for my taste.
I don't think he goes through his progressions.
Yeah, exactly.
But one thing I will say is that I think he'll have a week to adjust.
Well, this is who, like you were saying, this is who he is. I think he's crazy. I think that he has no fear, but also no sense of fear. Like, he has no idea of wait, what? Like he said you have to be delusional. He's like, I threw 3 picks, but I got to win the game.
I agree. I think he's a little crazy, but what I was trying to say is that I think that he actually has a week to prepare. Like, he's not the backup, so he's getting first team reps this upcoming week. So from a game planning standpoint, a lot of those wide receiver screens and stuff like that, I think you build off of that, and then you come out there with a legit game plan. I watched the Vikings. What was that, Sunday night or whatever?
Yeah.
I walked away
They're
unimpressed.
They're bad.
I think that their defense is a lot better than probably what Bengals fans will give them credit for. And you got to think about their head coach as a defensive-minded coach. I think that they'll put some different things in place, and I know that he's going to blitz them. And a lot of those opportunities that, Joe was throwing to Tanner Hudson on a 2-point conversion and different things like that, Joe is trained to go to whoever's open. I like the idea of Jake Browning throwing it to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and saying, go get it.
Right.
And I'm okay with that. I really am.
Well,
I'm not okay with Jake Browning being my quarterback instead of Joe Burrow, but I am okay with the actual choice of,
Well, even though he's the most accurate quarterback in NFL history, right ahead of Joe Burrow. But we don't want to read too much into his stats. We don't read too much. So listen, Mr. Zim, you brought up some great points about the Vikings defense, about Jake Browning. What is your official prediction before you leave?
I don't want to do a score prediction, but I do think the Bengals win and the Bengals go 3-0.
Wow, I love it. I love it. And player of the game?
T. Higgins.
Okay.
I like Chase Brown in the. I'm gonna tell you, I don't care about the running part of it. People got to understand that we're never going to be what people want us to be as far as a running team. But him catching the ball in space, I think he's going to be a nightmare for a lot of teams. And I think Jake Brown is going to give him way more opportunities to throw the ball to the flats. I don't think that Joe Burrow's looking to check it down. I think Jake Brown, and if he doesn't see his first read, going to check it down to Chase Brown a lot. And I think a lot of people that talked about Chase Brown being one of the best fantasy football players in fantasy football, I think that right now, starting week 3, I think you're going to get what you want.
I love that. But I will just say this. Look, the Vikings played 2 very bad teams, 2 very bad quarterbacks, and they lost. And, Javon Hargrave is an intimidating man. He knows how to hit people. And the Bengals offensive line, I get that Jake Browning gets the ball out a little bit faster, sometimes not knowing what he's doing, but that's fine. I think that the Vikings, after going 0-2, I think they will, pull this one out. And I do. And I think the final score will be Cincinnati 27, Minnesota 17.
Oh. What?
Well,
you said you thought that Minnesota would pull this one out.
Yeah, they will pull it out. So, okay,
pull
I thought it was clear.
A loss?
Well, let me explain. So,
okay,
the Bengals are hurting. It is as if they have a knife that was, in their side. Tremendous pain. And, everybody's like, hey, if only Jake Browning can kind of go 500, we'll feel a lot better. Well, when they win this game on the road, it will be like pulling this dagger out of their side. They will pull it out and they'll feel a lot better about the season. That's what I meant.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will tell you this. A lot of talk about our offense, all of our weapons are still there. And the one thing that I think that people got to pay attention to is what was the initial conversation? It was about the defense. Yeah. So the defense has to do what they're supposed to do. And I think that they'll be in good shape. I don't know what that means for a Super Bowl, but from a week-to-week basis, Bengals versus the Vikings, I got the Bengals.
Yeah. I mean, I think the defense, the good news is the young guys are getting more opportunities. They're looking good. I think we have more than one pass rusher. Obviously, Shamar's out for a little bit, but we have guys with the potential to get to the QB finally. And I'm excited about the defense. I think Slayton is, he's filling up the middle the best since we lost DJ Reader. I mean, in the linebackers, everybody's looking better. So defense gives me hope.
I thought Murphy looked better too.
I think it's the discipline and communication that needs work, giving up those big plays. They give a lot of kind of big plays to the Jaguars, but I think that's a good thing about the young defense. If they can just keep you in the games, eventually they'll, keep improving. So, Mr. Zim Houday, took way too much of your time, but as always, it's amazing. If anybody here, and there's no chance of this happening because everybody here is probably coming through your live stream, but if anybody here does not follow Zim Houday on Twitter or the Cincinnati podcast,
yes, sir,
it is the cream of the crop. It is what being a Bengals fan is all about. You have the player interviews, you have the humor, you have the entertainment, you have the insights, you have the knowledge, you have the insider info, you have everything. And you have a beautiful personality in Mr. Zim Houday. So
I appreciate
just want to
that,
thank
man.
you. Yeah. I just want to thank you for being on the show. Anything else you need to plug? Any merchandise you want to sell? I don't know what the commission rate you give is, but yeah.
We gotta figure. Hey, look, we gotta give you like a discount code or something to give all your fans of your show. But yeah, Zimhude.com. I have a really good design for Jake Browning. Six God is one of my favorite designs I ever made. We brought it back, and so we're ready to go. I'm a Bengal fan.
I love it.
I'm a big Joe Burrow fan, but
Yeah.
I want to make it very clear to everyone. I'm a Bengal fan.
Absolutely. He's a Bengals fan, and I would say the ultimate Bengals fan, telling it like it is, always sticking his neck out to our rivals and our haters, and pulling out the receipts to tell them why being a Bengals fan matters. So that is Mr. Zimhude. We will see you next time on the #1 Bengals podcast. So long, Esfiti. Bye.